My name is Juliana Nykolaiszyn with the Oklahoma State University Library. Today is Wednesday, August 26, 2015, and we're in Stillwater, Oklahoma, interviewing Bruce Waterfield. Bruce is joining us today for our Cowboys in Every County Oral History Project, representing Morrison, Oklahoma in Noble County. Bruce, thank you for joining us today.
You bet.
Well, let's learn a little bit more about you. Let's start with the year you were born and where you were born.
Okay, I was born in 1962. I'm actually a Texan. May not want to admit that, being an Oklahoman now, but I feel like I am an Oklahoman now. So anyway, I was born in Canadian, Texas in 1962. I don't know if you want me to go on about...
Why don't you tell me a little bit about your parents?
Okay. I go back a long way with OSU. My parents actually met here at OSU in 1957 at a thing called Dance Hour. It was a fraternity sorority function where they paired the men and women up and they made them dance together. So yeah, my parents met at that, and it's amazing how many people I've run into that either met at Dance Hour or knew what it was. Today's kids probably don't. I was in a fraternity as well and had no idea what it was, other than what my parents had told me. So, but yeah, my parents did meet here at OSU, so I guess I can say that I wouldn't be here if it weren't for OSU. So.
And where are your parents originally from?
My mother is originally a Kentuckian, and she followed her big brother here, who came here for vet school. He went on to be the track veterinarian for Churchill Downs in Louisville, and my grandfather, their father was actually racing secretary at Churchill Downs, so have quite a history in the horse racing business. My father, originally from Canadian, Texas. I grew up on a ranch, so he met my mother here at OSU and dragged her to Canadian, Texas. So she doesn't stay that much in touch with her Kentucky roots anymore. She considers herself to be from Canadian, Texas. What's sort of interesting now, all comes full circle, she will be moving here to Stillwater at the end of this week, as a matter of fact. She's had some health issues and wants to be closer to family, so we've actually built her a house here, and so she'll be moving to Stillwater.
Well, you mentioned your family has a ranching background.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when your father graduated from OSU,
mm-hmm.
and they returned home to Texas,
correct.
Tell me a little bit about his work.
My father was a rancher first and foremost, but he actually had a career in politics. He was a state representative from the Texas Panhandle. Canadian, I don't know if most people know, it's just right across the border from Oklahoma. So I always identified more really with Oklahoma. We would, if we needed to come to the big town, so to speak, we would come to Oklahoma City. So anyway, but he was a state rep from the state of Texas. So my parents actually spent a good deal of time in Austin, and I also did that as well. I moved to Austin, spent about 20 years there. I'm an OSU sports junkie. So I always kind of had in the back of my mind that I might retire to Stillwater, and when I turned 50, I just up and did it. So now I'm, even though I'm representing Noble County, I'm so close to Stillwater. I always say Stillwater. I guess I should say I'm from Morrison, which that is my post office mailing address, and I do live in Noble County, but work for OSU and spend a lot of time in Stillwater.
When you were a little boy growing up, did you split time between Canadian and Austin, or?
No, not so much. The politics came along later in my dad's life. We actually owned a couple of businesses together in Austin, so I still consider Canadian, Texas my home. I still go back there. I have a lot of relatives there. The family still has ranching interests there. So not really. I grew up when I was little and lived in Canadian. We spent a lot of Saturdays coming to Stillwater. We came to football games. I remember the old Lewis Field, of course, and just came to a lot of games. I think I was trying to figure out before this interview when I came to my first game, and I believe it was 1969. Hate to admit that, but so I've been coming to sporting events here in Stillwater for a really long time.
How long of a drive was that when you were younger?
3 hours. Oddly enough, it's really not that far. There are places in Oklahoma that are further away than we were in Canadian, Texas. If you get on Highway 51 and head west, you'll run into it. The number changes at the state line, but it's just due west of Stillwater.
Well, talk to me a little bit a little bit about your schooling growing up, your elementary school.
I had a pretty typical raising, I guess, in Canadian Texas. It's a small town of about 3,000, much like any small town in Oklahoma. Mostly ranching kids. There's a lot of oil and gas activity there, so there were a lot of maybe a bit more transient than most small towns, just because a lot of people come and go with the oil patch. But pretty typical raising. Went to high school there in Canadian and graduated, and came to OSU, which was sort of predetermined, I guess. I've counted, I think there have been 15 of us now that have come to OSU, counting the cousins and extended families. So OSU is definitely our school. And Canadian Texas is funny in that OSU is probably the predominant school there. It would either be OSU or Texas Tech. A lot of the ag kids would either come to school here or would go to Tech, but mainly here. So.
Mm-hmm. So when you're younger and you're going to school, you have this connection to OSU at a young age.
Yeah.
You're attending the football games.
Yeah.
How are you showing your OSU spirit when you're that young?
I don't know. It just happens organically, I guess. I mean, you come to a game, you get into it. It's exciting. Your parents went to school here, and they wear all of the gear and cheer at games. And I don't know. It just happens. And I guess that's why I'm such a huge OSU sports fan. And I will probably get into this later in the interview, but I do work for the OSU athletic department now. So it's just always been a part of what I've done, always.
Mm-hmm. Siblings?
I have one sister that did not come to OSU, one of the very few people in our family that did not. She went to a small school in Austin called St. Edward's. She's quite a bit younger than I am, so was raised more in Austin than I was when my dad was in politics. So she liked St. Edward's. She liked the smaller aspect. She's always been an OSU fan. I mean, she's been to plenty of events here as well. And now that my mother's moving here, she'll be spending more time here as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if she didn't move here at some point as well. So.
When you were getting ready to graduate from high school, did you have any idea of what you wanted to be when you got older?
I'm an ag major, so yes, I thought at that point I would probably go back to the family ranch. Once I ventured away from Canadian Texas, I decided I didn't want to go back. So my dad and his brother owned two family ranches together. My dad sold his because basically I didn't want to go back to it. Wanted to choose a little more urban area to reside, and so I did that. I was an ag major, but I was an ag loan officer for a period of about 10 years, and that's really my only tie to the ag world that I've had since I went to OSU, even though I was an ag major.
Well, let's talk about how you kind of came to OSU that freshman year. Did your parents drop you off? Did you drive?
I don't remember. It's funny. I do remember. No, I guess my parents didn't bring me. I drove. I just remember standing in the driveway, typical mom, tears in her eyes, driving off, and, just came to Stillwater. But it was such a fit. I mean, I'd been here so many times before that it wasn't that foreign. It was just, it was an easy transition, and it was easy.
What were you driving in 1980?
I believe I was in a Ford Bronco, a brown Ford Bronco, oddly enough. So I'm kind of a car junkie too. I've traded cars a lot, so I think I had probably several cars while I was going to school here.
So you come to OSU in 1980, and where are you living?
I was in a fraternity. I was a Sigma Nu. So, it's odd. I've stayed in touch with several of those guys, and I had a son that graduated from OSU 2 years ago in December. Followed in my footsteps and ended up as a Sigma Nu as well. So when I came back for his initiation ceremony, which it's kind of a sacred thing. You go down into the basement of the house, and nobody else other than members are allowed in there, but being a member that I got to go down and pin him, as a new Sigma Nu, which was really kind of a cool thing. But where I was going with that was there were, I think, 3, maybe 4 other dads that I went to school with that had sons at exactly the same time, and they were down there as well. So that was that was a really neat moment. I mean, it really was.
So you rushed as a freshman?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, which is typical. I mean, back then, that's all done really, I won't say that's predetermined. It's not like the girls' rush where everything's decided in that 1 week. You do summer trips, you do retreats, you do things with the guys, and then you just kind of figure out which house, you belong in. My father was a beta, and my uncle was a beta, so I broke ranks and went over to the Sigma News.
So freshman year, you're in the house in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Describe the atmosphere for me.
How much do you, I shouldn't say how much do you want to know. I shouldn't ask that.
What can you tell me?
I think it's a lot like it is today. I mean, I think certainly today's environment for hazing is not what it used to be. Certainly that went on. I don't think it ever goes on to the extent that people think it does. Because you hear of the horrible incidents that do happen randomly across the country, and it does happen. But by and large, it's a bonding experience, and I think if you do it right, and I don't know really what I'm trying to say other than it was not that bad of an experience. As people say, oh, wasn't it horrible? And no, it really wasn't. You bond with your pledge brothers, and you just kind of roll with it, and then when you're initiated, it's that much sweeter. What the good thing that has happened, I think, over the years is people are realizing you don't really have to do that to have, the bonds that you have with your fraternity brothers. So I know, my son shared things that went on in the house, and it was completely different from when I was there. So that, I think, it's a good thing that's gone away.
Mm-hmm. I guess I'm more interested in the kind of how different the feeling on campus was potentially in the 1980s versus today.
The only thing I think that is really radically different is that students today are so glued to their devices that while they are very social, I mean, over in the athletic department, we have a lot of interns, so I have a lot of exposure to students, and they're still very social. It hasn't. It just surprises me that everyone is so just so glued to their devices. That's the only way I can put it. Everyone wants an immediate answer, and you feel like you have to text someone back immediately when they, So that's a little bit different, but I think OSU people just kind of share a special bond. It really is a family atmosphere, and I know that seems so overused. I know in the athletic department we use it continuously. Come here, it's just like family, but it really is. I think that OSU does a really nice job of making everybody feel a part of things, and I don't know if other campuses excel like that as we do. My feeling is they really don't, because that's just a theme that comes up over and over and over with anybody that went here. And I think that's also because we're a little bit more of an isolated location. You don't go home as much. You can't run home all the time. Typically, if you're from Oklahoma City or Tulsa or Dallas or Houston, where all of our, a big part of our students are. So you're here together. You're kind of all in this mess together here in Stillwater, and it creates a really nice atmosphere, I think.
Do you remember your house mother?
I do. Her name was Mom Simon. A lot of guys will remember her because she lived to be 100 or 101. I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. I mean, I thought she was really old when I was there, and then she only died just a few years ago.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, I guess she was in her 70s when we were, in the house. That is one thing that's very different. She was pretty much totally a figurehead when we were there. We escorted her to dinner. We escorted her back. The house mother that was there when my son was there had a much more interactive relationship with the house mother. I mean, she kind of was a disciplinarian to an extent. I mean, she paid attention to what was going on. Our house mom was more of, we didn't see her that often. We saw her at dinner time, and she was a really neat lady. We all really liked her, but it was very different. I mean, the one that Michael had when he was in school here, much younger and just more a part of things. So,
kind of describe your your room in the Sigma new house?
Oh boy, well, we moved semester by semester, which is different. We moved all the time. So you could choose a 4-man room, you could choose a 5-man room, we had 2-man rooms, we had common showers, but boy, every configuration of room you can imagine. And all the guys just kind of got together and you figured out what you wanted to do with your room, where you wanted to put your bunk beds, where did you know. Now they've gone to more of a suite style format of the rooms, you know, where you kind of have suite mates. And I can't really remember from going in there when Michael was there. I think maybe they have separate bathrooms now, I think, for the suites. I can't remember, but yeah, it was neat. It was a neat atmosphere. You kind of tried to pair up with guys that you had a lot in common with, obviously, but also that maybe shared your same study habits and party habits and all that. But we also had one thing that they don't have now that we had back then was there was a rack room in the Sigma new house. That's what we called it. A very large, dark, cool room where you could always go to sleep. You were guaranteed that it was going to be quiet. And that was sort of a sacred space that everybody adhered to, not making noise in there, to sleeping. That's where you could go when you needed to get sleep. So that was nice.
I'm guessing homecoming was a big part of your collegiate experience.
It was, of course. I mean, for the Greeks,
Absolutely.
that's always the biggest thing ever. But yeah, you know, you stay up all night pumping. That's one thing that really hasn't changed. That really I don't think has changed at all. The house decks these days are way more elaborate than what we created, and you know they have ways of recreating photos. I mean, the way we did it was just kind of you picked a design and you kind of went with it. But now, you know, you patterned it after a photo that was, you know, a specific photo, and you can actually recognize people in the pumping now. You know, it's amazing what they can do. But the principles are still the same. You work night after night after night after night, long hours, and that. So it was neat. It was a good time.
So when you were a student and you wanted to hang out with friends off campus or go party off campus, would you go to a specific place or different places?
Well, back then, as I recall, the drinking age changed while I was at OSU. It was 18 when I started, and I believe 18 for the first couple of years. You would think I would remember that. But I remember the bars being a much more integral part of our lives than they are today. And our kids, like when my son went through, they always had their parties off campus at a house. You know, they were very careful to have designated drivers, which I think is awesome. That seems to have really taken hold here and, you know, cut down on the drinking and driving. But when I was here, we walked. We walked to the bars. We walked to the Gray Fox Inn, typically, which is where Cowboy Book, I believe, is now, right there near Eskimo Joe's. So we didn't really go off campus for socializing that much. Maybe off campus a little bit, but typically to a bar or a restaurant that was nearby.
So what were some of the places y'all would frequent?
Oh gosh, well I already mentioned one of them. The Gray Fox Inn is the one that always comes to mind. Eskimo Joe's back in the day when I was here was a dive bar. I mean, it really had a rickety old staircase. I mean, a lot of people remember it, but it was nothing special. It was fun, but it wasn't the grand show place that it is today. All the places on the Strip too. I spent a lot of time at the Coney. The Sigma New House was right across from Coney Island, so I don't even like hot dogs now, and I think that's why, really, because I ate so many of those stupid Coneys, 2 or 3 a night kind of thing. I mean, we would go there most nights and eat, you know, like at 10 or 11, and hence the freshman 30 or whatever it was. But yeah, it was a good time. The Strip is largely unchanged. I mean, the bars' names have changed. I mean, some of them, I guess, are still the same. But yeah, that part of OSU really has not changed, or that part of Stillwater really hasn't changed. What's really nice about Stillwater now as an older person coming back is that there are a number of adult venues that are adult appropriate, and I think Stillwater was missing that. Downtown, you know, you have Louis, you have Brooklyn's, you have Zanotti's Wine Bar, some nicer places for us old folks. So Stillwater has become such a nice place to live.
So while you were in school, you were studying
Ag economics.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's talk about some of the buildings you remember having classes in.
Yep, that's easy. I was a Sigma Nu, and I had to walk to Ag Hall. So I had the longest walk of anybody on campus. So I made that walk, and nearly all of my classes, at least the last 3 years of my school here seemed like they were always in Ag Hall. So I had a long walk. And now, I mean, campus is built beyond Ag Hall. I mean, I guess there were maybe a building or two past Ag Hall when I was in school here. But yeah, that's what I remember was Ag Hall.
Okay. Memorable professors that stand out in your mind?
Oh gosh, I should have known you were going to ask me that. My advisor and also one of my professors was Dr. Franzman, and I guess he's the one I remember the most because I was maybe an odd duck in that I really liked economics, and I took a lot of economics classes that were outside of agricultural economics as well. And he, as one of my professors, I just thought he was really good. He had a way of explaining things to you that you just got. And I, at that point, was thinking I would be going back to the ranch, So he put things in a practical application that said, hey, if you're doing this, here's why you need to figure out this. He had a good job of making the correlations. So he's probably the most memorable one that I had.
Okay. Did you have a job while you were a student?
I did not. I was lucky enough not to have to work, so I had a really nice time while I was here. I know one semester I had all of my classes on Tuesday, Thursday, so I could have a 4-day weekend. You usually don't have that choice because the classes aren't offered in that manner. So one time it just worked out. So I had every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday off, which was nice.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty smart. I think I had some of my worst grades that semester actually, even though I had 4 days in between classes to study.
Outside of your involvement with the Sigma News, were you involved with any other campus organizations?
No, we did a fair amount of volunteering, and I think the Greek community is still really good about that. Did some volunteer stuff, not so much campus organizations. I'm sure I did some. I'm not really recalling anything specific, but mostly Greek stuff, intramurals, all the stuff that we Greeks did was pretty much it.
Well, without divulging any secrets or incriminating anybody, when you're getting together with your buddies, the stories you tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there have been some funny ones. I mean, one of the things that I think it's kind of common knowledge, so you're not putting an idea in anybody's head, the underground tunnels here at OSU, I mean, I'm sure that it's come up in a lot of conversations, but after going out and having a good time at night, I can remember several occasions going down in the tunnels, and you can really go anywhere underneath OSU. I mean, the tunnels lead everywhere, and you can come up in a building, you can come up in Gallagher Arena. There's, it's an interesting.
Where would you normally jump in?
I don't really remember. It seems like somewhere over off Hester is where we would go in. I only did that maybe 2 or 3 times, and I've heard worse stories than what we did. We never went into a building that we weren't supposed to be, or a space that we weren't supposed to be in. I've heard of people going into places where they shouldn't be, and of course now I think there's a lot more cameras all over the place than there used to be. I mean, back then seems like we had rented the place and nobody ever got in trouble for doing it, but everybody knew what was going on. I mean, you would go down there, you might even run into somebody else that was doing it late at night. It was just some kind of odd, cool thing to do, I guess. But yeah, I don't know if that still goes on or not. I know when my son was in the Sigma Nu house a few years back, it still went on. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We don't hear too much of it in interviews from our 50s and 60s grads. I've only been hearing it lately.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely went on back in the day. Absolutely went on back in the day. And they were lit. I mean, some of the tunnels I remember standing up and walking in the tunnels, so it's not like you're on hands and knees trying to crawl through dirt space. They were concrete, and I mean, it's, nice space.
Other hijinks?
Of course, the sirloin stockade, steer, and the Theta Pond, that's the one everybody's heard of. Streaker's Knot, of course, used to be a big thing. Streaker's Knot kind of made its, I think it was at its high point maybe in the late 70s, right before I was here. Not so much a big deal in the early 80s. It seemed like it was being phased out at that time. So everybody knew the date, and it might still happen on a really small scale, but I think that was maybe before I got here. The tailgating scene has grown astronomically here in Stillwater, which is really cool. We didn't really have that big of a tailgating scene back in the day. I mean, a little bit of it went on, but certainly not to the scale it does today. I can also remember the availability of football tickets. You know, it was easy to get tickets back then. And when I was here, we were, you know, that period that ended with 1984, you know, prior to Barry Sanders, but we still had, you know, some greats that were here in the early 80s, had good football teams, but it was still pretty easy to come up with tickets. You know, today that's a little tougher to do, but we always had, you know, a bunch of them sitting on the table at the Sigma Newhouse. So I remember anybody that wanted to go to a game, you just walked by and grabbed your ticket and went. Those days are gone.
And Lewis Field was a lot different then.
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely.
Tell us what it was like.
It was just like an overgrown high school stadium, really. I mean, it was big. As a kid coming from Canadian Texas, you know, a 2A school, I thought it was just the coolest thing ever. But you know, I certainly have a lot of good memories of it. But boy, it was needing some updating, and of course Boone Pickens gave us that. So you know, it's just a beautiful place now. I look at it and still am awe of it. You know, so I got to see it make the transition, as did a lot of people. But it was, yeah, really just like a high school stadium. I mean, you could go under the bleachers. You know, it was, yeah, it's way different.
Would you attend any basketball?
Some, not as much as football.
Mm-hmm.
We would, you know, that was just kind of part of our fall routine. I think basketball's a little tougher because a lot of the games are during the week, school nights. And with them, you know, a lot of the games wouldn't get over until, you know, 10 or 11 at night. And if you're driving 3 hours, it's just hard. I can remember coming to a few games, big ones, you know, maybe Kansas, but typically not a lot of basketball games.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, you're getting close to graduation. It's crunch time.
Mm-hmm.
Any idea of what you're going to do?
Yeah, I did. I actually did 2 summer internships with a company in Fort Worth called National Finance Credit Corporation. They were the finance subsidiary of Texas Livestock Marketing Association. So I did, like I said, a couple of summer internships with them, and before I graduated, they offered me a job. And oddly enough, I didn't take the job. I actually went to work for First National Bank of Amarillo because it was closer to home, and worked there for a couple of years. That was right as the price of oil was crashing. I mean, a lot of Oklahomans in Texas remember that. So I survived, I think, the first 3 rounds of layoffs at the bank there in Amarillo, and then didn't survive the last round, and called the folks in Fort Worth and said, hey, I'm available now. They took me, and so anyway, I went to work for Texas Livestock Marketing and National Finance Credit Corporation in Fort Worth, which was an ag, you know, totally an ag lending institution. Bigger loans, usually $300,000 to $400,000 and up, operating lines of credit for ranches. So with my ranching background, it was a perfect fit for me.
Well, it was good that you had that experience prior to graduating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they were just really nice folks, and I kind of felt at home there because it was my people, you know, ranchers, and I enjoyed my time there a lot.
Before we jump further into your career, what was graduation like?
You know, I was a December graduate, and I didn't walk. I
Okay.
probably shouldn't admit that, but my parents didn't feel that strongly about me walking, which is odd because we're an OSU family, and so we're all about OSU. And I'm sure if I'd have graduated in May, I probably would have walked. But really, back then, a whole bunch of us didn't. Most of us didn't walk. I mean, I know they allowed you the option, I think, to do that in December, but since I started working immediately after school, I didn't come back in May, you know, to actually walk across the stage. So I didn't. I mean, I graduated, but I didn't put on the cap and gown. So.
All right. So after your work in the banking industry, in the mortgage industry, kind of take me through the progression.
Oh boy, I haven't done this in a long time, so I'll have to think about it. Yeah, after I decided to leave the banking world, my dad was in Austin, and once he was done with his political career, he and I went into business together, and we owned several businesses in Austin. We owned a video production company, which was at the time in Chapter 13 bankruptcy, Chapter 13 or Chapter 11, I can't remember which. But anyway, in bankruptcy, we purchased it out of bankruptcy, kind of got it back on its feet, recapitalized it, and operated it for, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years, something like that, and then sold it. Turned around, bought another business that was kind of in the same dire straits, called Database Marketing Group. Got it back on its feet, and now it's still there. It's in a company called Invenio Marketing in Austin, and I kept a small piece of that. So maybe someday it'll actually pay for my retirement. We'll see. But it's I think they're up to maybe 700 employees now. So it's a good sized company, and that, I guess, takes me through my time there in Austin. I actually also worked for a company, an archaeologist. I decided I wanted to do something fun, so I left the day-to-day operation of Database Marketing Group and went to work for for an archaeological consulting company, which was really interesting. It was fun. I kind of had an interest in archaeology anyway, and it was a fun group of people. So I actually stayed there for about 10 years. My last 10 years in Austin was spent doing that. So I was the financial guy. I was the CFO. But I would go out on digs occasionally, and they would let me go do stuff. And I also had a big interest in photography, so I did a little bit of the photography there on site at Database Marketing Group, which sort of led me to my time here in Stillwater and what came next.
What year did you return to Stillwater?
I bought 44 acres of property in 2007 in Noble County, north of Stillwater, with the intent of retiring here. I really didn't plan to be here so soon. Like I said, I bought it in 2007 thinking that I would retire and move here when I was 52. That was kind of my plan. I'm only 53 now, and I say only 53, but I'm 53 now, and I've been in Stillwater now for 5 years. So I actually did it, at late 40s or about that time frame. Had the property for a good while, and I kind of into the RVing scene, so have a motorhome. So would always bring the motorhome up for football games and such, and use that property as a place to park it. Have RV pads and electrical, sewer, water there, and then ended up building a house in 2011. So I guess really as a full-time Stillwater resident, that started in 2011. So 4 years now, so that I've been here full-time in Stillwater. So.
And kind of tell me how you became involved with the athletics program here.
Well, other than being a fan, which has been forever, I did some freelance photography for a guy named Brody Schmidt, who has been shooting for Oklahoma State athletics for quite some time, as also a freelancer. And anyway, shot for him for about a year, shot a couple of seasons worth of football when I was actually still in Austin. Was making the trip back and forth. We came up here every weekend for football and basketball. I burned a lot of miles doing that, but shot for Brody, and that sort of led to I got to know a lot of the people in the athletics department. My buddy Kyle Ray, who is in charge of enrollment management and marketing for OSU, is also a good friend, and he suggested that I apply for a job in university marketing. So I went to work for them for about a year. That was in 2011, I guess. I have to get my years straight. But anyway, went to work for them, stayed about a year and a half, but I was also shooting sports on the side for them. Any chance I could get out of the office and go shoot, I would, even if it was a baseball game that was during the week, during the day, or whatever. I would try to sneak out and shoot it. Anyway, that led to a good relationship with the folks in athletics. They, at some point, decided that they wanted to hire a full-time photographer, so here I am. So I guess I'm going into my 5th season shooting for the athletic department, but as a full-time athletics employee, I guess this will be my 3rd year. It's fun. I get to travel with the team, so we'll be heading to Central Michigan a week from right about now. Actually, I think we're leaving a little bit after noon next Wednesday. For our season opener at Central Michigan. But for an OSU sports junkie, there couldn't be a better job on the planet. I shoot all 16 sports for OSU athletics, so a lot of hours, a lot of extra time put in, but it's fun. I mean, I get to be there as a fan. I can't imagine having this job not being an OSU fan, because it's pretty grueling, the schedule that we have to keep. If you're not actually into the sport and not enjoying watching the athletes and really pulling for OSU, I don't think the job would be near as exciting as it is to me.
All 16.
Yep. Believe it or not. I believe there's 16. I haven't counted in a long time, but it's, well, the ones, I mean, we have equestrian, we have a lot of the Olympic sports. You got wrestling, men's and women's basketball, football, the list, softball, baseball. So I believe there's 16. I can't really count 16, but someone threw out that number. But it's in the teens. It's a large number of sports and a large number of events.
Now, it's pretty challenging shooting, especially action shots.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you trying to, what types of shots are you trying to compose?
Well, it varies. I mean, we shoot a variety. We need fan shots. We need those pretty, the beautiful marketing shots of a full stadium on a beautiful day, people having fun, the band, the cheerleaders, the Palm Squad, all the people that are there. So you shoot just a huge variety of shots, wide shots, close-up shots. The action shots is what I'm primarily there for. There are other photographers here that kind of do what I do, but really the athletic department wants the action stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they want their athletes, they want them showcased, they want to use those for marketing materials later on, they want to use them in the media guide, on the website. So that's primarily why I'm there. Technology's made it so much easier, to be a photographer. I can't imagine the guys back in the day that had to, they were limited to, 24 or 36 exposures, and the inability to shoot in low light, all of those things. So I look back at the older photos and am in awe of what they've done compared, we have it pretty easy, these days as to what we're shooting. Getting that shot is a lot easier today than it used to be.
So on average, say for a football game,
Mm-hmm.
how many photos are you taking?
I usually end up with 12 to 1,400
Mm-hmm.
shots. That would include the walk, that would include pregame, and some postgame, not a lot. But, I would say 800 to 900 shots of the game itself, and then the ancillary stuff, 300 or 400 shots. If there are any special events, football has become such a spectacle these days. There's usually something going on over there on the north side of the stadium. They'll have a guy motorcycle jumping, or the shopping and all the fan interaction stuff is always over there. They might have the Heisman House over there. So there's always a lot to shoot. And if you don't shoot something, inevitably someone will ask for it. So I try to be everywhere I can on game day, to take care of that.
So on a typical football game day,
Mm-hmm.
kind of walk me through your schedule.
My schedule is easier than the video guys, really, because I'm kind of a one-man show. I'm the only photographer that works for OSU. There's certainly a lot of other photographers that go. The guys over in university marketing typically shoot football, as do I. But I get there maybe 3 hours ahead of game time, walk around, try to get some tailgating shots. You don't want to get out there too early because you kind of lose the atmosphere. So you sort of have to ramp up at the same time the crowd does. Get out there and shoot some tailgating shots. I always shoot the walk. Try to shoot it from every angle imaginable. I've stood on top of those flower pots at the end of Hester, or balancing up there trying to get an aerial shot of the walk. I've gone up, certainly on the rooftop, do a fair amount of rooftop shooting from the top of the stadium. And then I try to shoot pregame. A lot of times the players that aren't starters really will only be dressed in full pads and jersey, the whole get up during the pregame. And so I shoot all the pregame, and I usually shoot that pretty heavily to get players that might not see on the field action, guys that are walk-ons, and those guys that give it their all but aren't necessarily the starters. I enjoy shooting them, and when it comes time for them to graduate or leave the program, we inevitably always need photos. So, it's not just the stars that we shoot. We try to get shots of everybody because at some point you'll need them. But that's my typical day. I usually finish. It's at the end of the day where all the work comes in. You shoot 1,200 photos, but you got to go through them. So it's typically 3 or 4 hours after the game that you spend in your office. So those 8 o'clock games are painful, that end at 11 or 11:30, and then you're there till 2 or 3 in the morning working up photos. But it's today, that's one thing that really has changed, is everybody's need or want for immediate gratification. So you really feel like you need to work those up pretty much immediately. This year I'll be carrying an iPad onto the field. I'll be broadcasting photos straight from my camera, to my iPad, and then emailing them to our social media folks, for immediate distribution. So we'll have stuff out on, Instagram, Twitter, Flickr. We'll have all that stuff out there pretty much immediately after it happens. If a big play gets made, we'll be tweeting photos within 5 or 10 minutes of it happening. So that's something different.
Wow.
Usually, in the old days when I was growing up, you got up the next morning and you looked at the Sunday paper. So, but now it's you don't do that. You get it immediately. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Outside of football, what are some of your favorite sports? I know you're a fan. What are your favorite sports to shoot?
Football certainly, because I grew up coming to OSU football. I'm just such a huge fan. I've really grown to like baseball a lot. I enjoy it. I like the team. I like the players. Josh Holliday. Wow, what an incredible coach and guy. I mean, the staff here in athletics is just awesome. They really are nice. And I always, like to say to people, I probably know more people in the athletic department than anyone other than Coach Holder, the athletic director, because I have exposure to every single department. The guys in Orange Power Studios that do all the video stuff, and myself, we are just constantly around those guys because we cover all the sports. If you work for a specific sport, you're kind of in your little cocoon. The football guys don't see a lot of what everybody else does, so we get to make the rounds, and that's fun. That's fun for me because you get to know everybody. But you asked me about what my favorite things to shoot, or I got sidetracked. But I really like baseball. I like cross country. I enjoy shooting those guys, and they're a lot of fun to travel with. I've gone to Terre Haute, Indiana with them on several trips now, and they're neat kids. They're just really a pleasure to hang out with. I don't know that I could pick a favorite other than football. I just love football, but I enjoy shooting all the sports. I really do. I'm not just saying that. It's like I'm just, I just enjoy what I do. So it's hard to really pinpoint other than football what I really do like. So.
You kind of have a dream job at OSU.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I do, and it's funny. You don't do it to get rich, certainly, but it's just a lot of fun. What really propelled me to come up here is when I was living in Austin, had several friends who either had lost kids or lost spouses, at a pretty early age, and I'd always wanted to come up here and move to Stillwater and kind of do something, really off the wall and crazy. So that's what propelled me to do it early. I just thought, I may never get there. I may still be, I may be 70 years old, still sitting in Austin and not having done what I've done, and I haven't regretted it for a second. I absolutely love Stillwater, and I love working for athletics. So it is a dream job, and when I lived in Austin, I was so focused on retirement. It's like, when am I going to get to that age where I can move up there? Now I have no desire to retire, which is it's really pretty comforting, because when you're younger, you're so focused on that. Everybody tells you build for retirement, save your money. You don't want to do this forever. Well, I found a job that I would like to do forever. So as long as they'll let me haul a camera around, I'm going to be out there. So it's a really fun job. Like I said, you won't get rich doing it, but if you love doing it, I don't feel like I'm coming to work every day at all. Despite the long hours and crazy travel schedule and all that stuff, it's just a lot of fun. Sometimes I can't believe I'm getting paid to do it. So.
Memorable moments?
In sports?
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh. Well, the Bedlam victory in 2011 over OU, 44-10, that's forever etched in my mind. Because growing up, coming here, we know our football history. Good Lord, I saw some horrible games, and you just dreaded those trips over here when we were playing Nebraska or OU, just, And now, we've beaten Nebraska badly several times. We pounded OU, and even when we lose to OU, we're competitive now. There's, gone are the days when you expect to be beaten by OU. So that 44-10 game really was, the high point. And the Fiesta Bowl that followed it, that was my first season to shoot for OSU, was the Fiesta Bowl season. So what a way to start. But that was memorable too. It was just it was like a whirlwind, but it was kind of like a dream as well. I couldn't believe I'm out here in Arizona shooting the festival and watching my team do this. So that was great. And of course the game itself, going into overtime and then winning with a field goal kick doesn't get much better than that. So those were pretty memorable. And last year's Bedlam game, when we took them to overtime and beat them in Norman, that was a heck of a lot of fun too. So yeah. And there's been some fun, baseball's returning, it's back to prominence now. When I was in school here, baseball was dominant. I mean, we won the Big 12 or the Big 8 every single year. So it's been fun watching them come back too. So that's been a high point because I love baseball and I like following the team. So watching them come back has been fun.
I'm sure the best is yet to come.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, OSU athletics really, as far as an overall athletic department, they really are outstanding. I mean, all of our sports are competitive. That's some sports seem to, or some schools, I think that a lot of larger schools just give it all up for football. I mean, you just sacrifice all your other sports. OSU has a really well-rounded athletic department, and I think a lot of people do realize that, but I think maybe we need to do a better job of getting the word out that, hey, all of our sports are fun to follow, and we're competitive, in pretty much everything we do. So that's what makes it a fun job.
Well, you own property in Morrison. Tell me a little bit about Morrison.
There's not much. That won't take long. There's a bank, there's a post office, and there's Morrison Cafe. I'm a regular at Morrison Cafe. I went there last night, as a matter of fact. So there's, it's just typical small town. I live about 4 to 5 miles southwest of Morrison, right on the Payne-Noble County line, basically. You could throw a rock into Payne County from my place. So don't spend a lot of time in Morrison other than going to the Morrison Cafe and eating, and I renew there's a tag agency there, so I renew my farm tags in Morrison, but that's about it. I head into Stillwater, and I live right off 177, so it's really easy to get into Stillwater. And with all the growth in Stillwater, Perkins Road basically dead ends about where I live. I'm just a quarter mile past where Perkins Road dead ends. So I can just hop on Perkins Road and come right into town, and that's where Stillwater's growth is. So all the restaurants and shopping is out on that end of town. So that's pretty nice. I can get there in 10 minutes. So.
Why did you choose that piece of land?
Just because it was beautiful. I had given a realtor instructions when we were coming up for a football game that I wanted to see a whole bunch of different pieces of property. And the second one we went to, I knew that was it. So it was just a beautiful place. You pull in, there's a pretty large pond. It was just pretty. There's a couple of creeks that run across the property. And I said, this is the one, so let's call the guy and make an offer. And he accepted the offer, and the rest is history.
In the nomination that came to us, and if you want to talk about it, it's fine. If you don't, that's fine. It mentioned that a family tragedy brought you to Stillwater.
Yeah, I don't know that it brought me to Stillwater as much as it did. I don't know that it really brought me to Stillwater. It definitely tied me back to OSU and made me feel connected. I had my first cousin, whose name was Tracy Waterfield. She was also went to school here and was in the Pi Phi sorority, and she's been in the news a lot lately. So I think a lot of people probably know who she is. But it's a murder that's never been solved. She met her future husband here, who was a Sigma Nu. Sounds all ties together, doesn't it? Anyway, and she was brutally murdered in Moore. After she met Jeff, he graduated from OSU. That was her husband. They moved to Moore because he graduated from OSU, but at the time OSU didn't have a medical school, so he went to OU Medical School. So they moved down there. And on her 21st birthday, she was found brutally murdered. And to this day, they've never solved the crime, and it's been, gosh, however many years, 30-something years. It happened in 1981. So that was a really traumatic time for our whole family. Her younger sister and I graduated together in Canadian, and she came here and was also a Pi Phi. And so we all got through it, and we just kind of plow through it. But it's definitely brought our family closer together. And she was an OSU girl, so a lot, even to this day, I have a lot of people come up to me and remember Tracy fondly, and just was a really neat person. Who died much too soon. We set up the family set up a scholarship in her honor. When Boone Pickens did the Pickens Legacy Scholarship Match, we all got together and made a donation, and so we do have a scholarship in her honor, which is neat, within the College of Education. And at some point, that scholarship value will triple because of the Pickens match, which was a really neat thing Boone Pickens did. I mean, you can't say enough time that you can put up money and it'll be worth 3 times what you put up at some point in the future. So it's a good scholarship now. It'll be an even better scholarship someday. But that is a really neat gift. So we decided to honor her in that manner, and I know she would be proud because she was a proud OSU girl. So, anyway.
Well, looking back on your career, how did attending OSU and earning your degree here impact your life?
Well, in a huge way right now, because I wouldn't have this job in the athletic department, which is the most important thing to me right now. But just getting the degree, I mean, I like I said, I did for the first 8 or 10 years of my career use my ag degree, so I was an ag loan officer, and just from the simple point where applying for the jobs required a bachelor's degree, and it's just something I've had for life. I mean, all the people I've met here, I mean, OSU's always been a huge part of my life. But as far as getting a job, just the simple matter of the fact of having a degree has helped me land a job. But more importantly, the people I've met, the people I've connected with here. A lot of people said, what are you, crazy? Austin has a reputation of being a really cool town. And said, what are you doing moving from Austin, Texas to Stillwater, Oklahoma? What do you, because I loved Austin too. But I have just not regretted it for a single second. I've always felt a part of Stillwater, and I'm supposed to be talking about Noble County, I think, instead of Payne County, right? But just love the people here, and it's one thing that I didn't realize when I was going to college here at all. I guess we're so self-absorbed in our school and all the things that that school is about. What a great community Stillwater is. It's just a nice place to live. The people are just unbelievably friendly. And that's one thing I really noticed even coming from Texas. Texans claim to be the friendliest people on earth, but such a notable difference in people in Austin, not that they were rude, but we would come up here and you might walk in the convenience store to get something to drink, and 15 minutes later you're still talking to the clerk. You just don't find that there, So I really like being in Stillwater. And my photography career started with being a storm chaser. I love the weather. And so that's why that was one of the draws to Stillwater, was the crazy weather that we have here. And so that was another reason that I loved being in Stillwater, because the weather is just a little more exciting here, more to shoot. So
storm chasing?
Yeah, I love storm chasing.
Do you really?
Yeah, my job has kind of gotten in the way of that lately, because it seems like every time we have a good chase day, there's always something going on. I either need to, there's something to shoot in athletics. But I try to plan a little bit. If I can watch the forecast like 8 or 10 days ahead of time, and they're forecasting a period of really stormy weather, I try to schedule my photography stuff around it.
Do you remember the first big storm you saw?
Gosh, there are so many. I wasn't living in Stillwater yet, but about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a really large wedge tornado on the ground just west of Hennessy. And I was out shooting that day, and actually I was with a chase team, and got some really neat shots of a big wedge tornado on the ground, that's probably my most memorable storm. But I've always been into landscape photography, so if it was a good thunderstorm day, or it was evening close to sunset, I would just head out with the camera. So there have been so many storms, I don't really have one in particular other than that one that sticks out in my mind. So, we were out chasing the day of that El Reno tornado, where a couple of the storm chasers were killed. That's really the only time I've ever been scared when I was out, because so many of us storm chasers were on the wrong side of that storm. I mean, it was heading east, northeast, and then all of a sudden headed southeast. A lot of us were on the south side of that storm and just in a really bad place. So that was pretty scary. But other than that, I guess that is a very memorable storm, actually, now that I think about it. But didn't really get any great photos, but was scared.
You've kind of, from a very early age had this connection to OSU.
Mm-hmm.
You have strong family ties to the university.
Right.
What do you think sparks such loyalty in OSU alumni?
It's so many things. I mean, part of it's the experience that we all have here. I mean, it's just so much fun here. I think there's always a bit of trepidation coming out of high school, especially someone coming from a small house school like we did, that, it's going to be overwhelming. OSU is just a really comfortable place to be. I mean, making that transition from high school to college was just a pleasure, because from the moment you step on campus, you feel welcome. So that once you're sucked into that, it just becomes a part of you. I don't really know how to explain, other than it just feels right when you're here. People are so welcoming and friendly. But I mean, I guess perhaps a bit of it's brainwashing too. When I was little, my parents were all about OSU. We donned the OSU gear and we came over here. But my parents were very open-minded. I mean, they didn't say you had to go to OSU or we're not going to pay for your school. I mean, I've heard of that happening, but so yeah, no, I don't know how to explain it, other than it's just kind of a feeling more than it is something you can put your finger on. It's just a great place to be.
Advice to students, what would you tell them?
That's hard. As you get older, that really is something that I say follow your passion. I mean, I won't say that I had the wrong jobs prior to the one I have now, but I never had a job that I was so passionate about as I am now. And just don't make it all about the money. I mean, I really can't say it any more simple than that. I mean, I would choose the job I have right now over a six-figure job, just because I'm having so much fun. And I may not be able to afford to do some of the things that I, could if I were making a lot more money, but every day is like a reward. I mean, it's just, follow your passion. I know that's cliche, but really do. Life is too short. I mean, I've watched too many people die young, or too many people that retired, at age 60 or 65 and dropped dead 2 years later. Gosh, follow do what you love to do, and then every day is like vacation.
You mentioned your son earlier.
Mm-hmm. Tell
me a little bit about your immediate family.
Well, right now, all that's left, I don't know how much detail you want me to go into. I have a partner here in Stillwater who is absolutely sucked into the whole OSU experience. He works over in the College of Education, and it's become grew up on the East Coast in Maryland, actually, and so I don't think he ever envisioned being in Stillwater, Oklahoma, for his for the rest of his life, but absolutely loves it here, as do I. I mentioned my mom earlier. She'll be moving to Stillwater at the end of this week. My father is now deceased, so we have a pretty small immediate family, just my sister, myself, in our immediate family, mom, sister, and myself. My uncle, who was also a huge OSU fan, just passed away about 3 weeks ago in Canadian, Texas. He was 81. All the rest of that side of the family is still in Canadian. But yeah, we have a pretty small family. And then there's the Kentucky side of the family as well. That's my mom's side of the family. But, as far as that goes, that's about it.
And has your son graduated?
Yes, he has gone to work for Marathon Oil. He lives in Houston, and graduated in, the years go by so quickly, I guess December of 2013. So he's been with Marathon going on 2 years, so far as surviving the crash in oil prices, and still has a job. So I don't want him to boomerang home. So I love him to death, but yeah, I like him making his own living.
Well, as we kind of wind on down, is there anything you'd like to mention that we haven't talked about today?
I don't think so. I think we've covered just about everything. I guess as we end everything in OSU athletics, go Pokes.
Well, I'm sure we'll look forward to seeing your images from football and all the other sports.
Yeah, next Thursday they will start rolling off the press. So yeah.
Sounds great. Bruce, thank you so much for joining us as part of our Cowboys in Every County project, representing the big town of Morrison, Oklahoma.
Yeah, Noble County.
Noble County.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
it.